Okay, everyone, let's get started. I thank you all for joining us at the outlet. We're at episode 22 of SheTek's Lunch and Learn with Extraordinary Women. Today, we're going to be talking about diversity in technology, and we are going to be covering a broad number of topics. You're going to love our panelists. They're fabulous. Just a few things that you know. Everybody's going to be on mute and their cameras are going to be off, except for our panelists. If you have any questions, you can put them in the Q&A or the chat, and we're looking forward to seeing your questions. They'll all be answered at the end of the program. Okay, so I am going to start by introducing our founder, Chaya Pamula, who will introduce us to our panelists for today. Chaya?
Okay, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who has joined the webinar today. We have an incredible topic, wonderful women as panelists today. So the topic today is on diversity in technology. So I would like to introduce you these three incredible, very successful women. Kristin Malek, she's a VP and also global business diversity leader. She's also a leader in supply diversity. Kristin is also a board member of DEI board, and also she's our advisory board member for SheTek. And the other person is Diane Strand. Diane is executive producer of Spirit of Innovation, CEO of JDS Studios, and Diane works in the digital world, and she's been leading a lot of initiatives. You'll hear from her. And also we have Karen Frame. She's CEO of Makeena, a B certified corp. She's also very passionate about using technology and data to transform the world for better. So I'm so happy to be on this panel along with these women. So hold on. I just want to give a chance to all of them to introduce themselves. So Kristin, do you want to start?
Well, hi, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Thanks for joining on this Friday. And thank you so much for the invite to the SheTek team. So when I first met the SheTek team, gosh, it was probably 5 years ago. And I could use all of the time to talk about all the things that I value about SheTek, but I think I'll just share, why do I participate? And so I think there's two ways to live life. You can be present or you can participate. And SheTek is a standalone, and I think above the rest of an organization that truly participates, right, is taking action, cataloged activity. And so for myself, when I was a little girl in my tweens, I didn't see a lot of successful women in technology, right? I think I'll date myself, perhaps, but I loved that movie Working Girl with Melanie Griffith. And she was like the only woman I saw carry a briefcase in kind of my realm of my family, of that. And I'm like, gosh, one day I would love to be able to take a ferry and like have a briefcase, right? And so I think it's so important to have good role models and to be able to, see. You have to see to believe, and SheTek is doing that. So I think if people ask me why do I invest time, because time is the new currency, it's because I didn't have this and I want this for others. And so it's really just a pleasure to be here. So thank you.
Thanks, Kristin. Thank you. Pleasure to have you on the board as well. Diane, you want to go next?
Hello, everyone. My name is Diane Strand, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me. I met Chaya just a couple of months ago, actually, wearing a different hat of mine as the president of economic development for Southwest Riverside County. And we just kind of clicked because we're both women in technology, and she started sharing about SheTek to me, and we had lunch. So it's just an honor to be here. Being a woman in the room, I've been one of only one woman in the room as I've grown through my career to now, thankfully, being able to be an employer of more women than men. I do believe that there should be a few good men around as well, because I'm in business with my partner in life and in business, who's my husband. So, I couldn't do it without him. But at the same time, I love to see what the power of women are able to do in a collaborative environment. And so I'm excited to share. I work in diversity and inclusion space as well as in media and technology. So I feel like it's an important subject to definitely be talking about. So thank you for having me.
Thanks, Diane. There's a lot to come through these conversations, I know. And Karen, do you want to go next?
Yeah. Well, I just met Chaya today, but I know her daughter, who is also a lawyer. I do have a background as a lawyer for multiple technology companies. And of course, I'm running a tech company now. We can talk about that later. But I am super excited to be involved in technology. I have since I've been 4, and you'll hear a little bit about my story. And I'm looking forward to the questions and just having an interactive discussion with all of you women.
Excellent. Thanks, Karen. So welcome again, and we truly appreciate you all 3 of you joining. I know your schedules are very tight. Really appreciate, and I'm really excited about this conversation today. And today is the last day of Women's History Month. We all know that. And the theme of International Women's Day for this year is embracing equity. The spirit of discussion today is all about celebrating women's achievements, sharing stories, and that will enable us to increase visibility while calling out inequality. So as you all know, SheTek's mission is to not only bring awareness around diversity and inclusion, but also providing a platform for women to thrive in the tech industry. And our panelists today, they come from tech and digital backgrounds, and it would be interesting to learn a lot more about their career journeys and challenges they've overcome as they progressed in their careers. So as we know, the tech industry is actually thriving more than ever as companies are exploring and attracting new hires to the space, because especially the pandemic has changed the dimension so much. But if you look at some of the statistics, in some of the reports that are published out there, we can see that women make up on 33% of tech-related worldwide, which is actually an improvement from the time we started SheTek. It used to be around 25%, or some reports said 27%, but now we're saying looking at 33%, which is actually a great thing. We can see the improvement, but that's not enough. Still, there are some existing challenges, right? Black women CEOs are paid 38% less than white male CEOs. 50% of women in tech leave their job before the age of 35 because of all the challenges, and primarily related to gender bias. And over 50% of women in tech report harassment and sexism. Female founders, if they go for venture capital, probably you're looking at 5%, less than 5% of female founders receiving money. But the studies also say, everybody kind of, you read any document, articles, they say businesses with diverse executive team are 25% more likely to have above average profitability. So we know that there are a lot of good things that can happen to companies. The productivity can increase, efficiency increases, the coordination, collaboration, power increases in the companies, bringing in more diversity. But it's not going at the pace it should be. So let's get to the basics, right? So what I would like to ask the panelists is, what does diversity in the tech industry, in general, what does diversity mean to you? We'll get into the tech industry later on, but what does it mean to you? And maybe you can bring in some of the examples from your own world. Whoever wants to respond to this question can go first.
I'm happy to kind of chime in here. So I'm 60 years old. So I've had a really diverse and rich career in technology. One of the things that I have seen over the years now, honestly, my dad was a science professor, and specifically at the University of Illinois. So there was a lot of opportunity here. I went to a STEM school very early, right? Obviously, I learned how to code when I was 4. So I never really thought, just so you know, I never thought there was a difference between men and women. I mean, obviously there is, but I wasn't taught that I didn't have the same advantages that a man had. And so it's really interesting for me because I know that there's been a lot of talk about that since, obviously, but my experiences, because of how I was raised, I just never thought that I was at a disadvantage. So I've gone through my life as if there was no disadvantage. It was not until I became a founder of a tech company myself without a male co-founder that I realized there is a huge disadvantage to being a woman. So as you mentioned, women do not receive as much in VC investment as men do. And quite frankly, it's way less than 5%. It's 1.9%. And in Colorado, where I am based, it's like 1.7%. So it's even less. So anyway, I mean, I know I'm kind of talking, and I'll let the other panelists talk as well. But, it's interesting to see everybody's perspective and listen to other people's perspective on this issue.
Yeah, thanks, Karin. I just want to add the percentage we're talking about. In the tech industry, the number, what you're saying seems to be, what I'm reading also 2% or less than 2%. But non-tech, there is little higher percentage of VC capital. Yeah, I mean, it's also industry-based and region-based as well. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Diane, you want to go next?
Sure. My experience, in the tech industry, I'm in the entertainment industry. So there has been lots of different ways that you've had to break through. And when I was starting out in the industry as an actor, I was the pretty girl. And so that was always how I was kind of treated until all of a sudden I started moving behind the camera. And then they said, well, aren't you supposed to be in front of the camera? Until I really started proving myself and showing my worth. And especially, in the beginning, when I was in the creative zone, the entertainment industry in of itself is very subjective. So you go through that same kind of feeling when you're in that creative zone. But as I started to move more into the production world and I was in reality television, that's where a lot of I would say a lot of more discrimination kind of came my way. It's the first time I ever experienced any harassment that was there, because it was a much more male dominant place to be than when I was in the creative space of the entertainment industry, but moving much more into the production and location scouting to being a part of the equipment and actually working with the cameras and the lights and the audio equipment. There were maybe, if lucky, 3 or 4 of us that were, working in a company of 45. And so that was a very tough place to be. Reality television in and of itself is a very cutthroat part of the industry. And then adding in the dominance of the male side when you're working in the crewing and putting the actual production on is a very tough space to be in. I would say that that's what drove me to entrepreneurship, was working in that space, was, not being able to balance at that time, because I had a child who was 2.5, 3 years old. And it was either I worked 17, 18-hour days to keep up with my male counterparts and miss raising my child, or I had to choose, and I did choose my child. I went to entrepreneurship, and I've never looked back, and changing that. And that has always been my focus moving forward, that, I lean that if I can put a woman in power who can do what a man can do, I am always going to choose the woman. And thankfully, in my career as an entrepreneur, I have come across much stronger women in this industry that, we have, we let it roll off our back, and we keep going, and we keep pushing forward, and we keep striving, as opposed to, I've seen a lot of men turn tail and go the other way, because they can't do what it is. Their ego can't allow them to actually sometimes step into the space for a little bit of critique or criticism. So it's been nice to be able to turn the tables. So
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I cannot agree any more than what you said, especially for women having to juggle the priorities as we go through our lives. Kristin, can you add on to it?
Yeah, what a dynamic conversation, right? I can see why the panelists were put together, right? Not one is the same of our answers. So what a treat for everyone listening in or who will listen after. So for me, what I see is just there's persistent uncertainty in today's environment, macro and micro. I think a few things come to mind when I think about current state and past performance. Right, inflation today is at the lowest it's ever been, right, since September 2021. 6%. 90 days ago, we were hovering, closer to double digits. So, in a time of persistent uncertainty, I think it is good to call out the good things, right? And so, I love that you talked about women in tech have representation have moved from 25 to 33%. I think that should be noted and perhaps more celebrated to you and your organization. So, just a huge congratulations. Because in this environment of economic anxiety, the call to action for accelerated DEI, there are times where we have to stop and acknowledge progress, right? Or it just gets exhausting, right? And there's fatigue. And so I want to make sure I did that. When I think about diversity in technology, what comes to mind too is just the value chain. I think that when you have a value chain full and grounded and anchored in DEI, right, you really can't go wrong, because that's all revenue enabling, right? We all are in business, right, to create environments for equity in supply chain, workforce, and the workplace, right? You can't have one without the other. And so diversity in technology creates a value chain that can't be argued when revenue is on the table. I think I would also share, when we're talking about revenue enabling programs, having diverse workforces and workplaces create more diversity of thought. There's a slew of data out there that'll tell you that I could read to you. But at the core of what we have today, and looking at what we've all been through for the past 30 some months, is that human data will prevail, right? The storytelling, the experiences, the empathetic approach in which we all come to work with or come to our hobbies or our interests to our families. And so, I think that we are being measured more closely than ever before on DEI and technology, DEI in the workplace, above and beyond technology as well. And I welcome those measurements, because I think, right, what gets measured will get managed. And I think we lost sight quite a bit coming into 2020 of DEI initiatives, of perhaps ESG, who is getting promoted, who is getting funded, from venture capital firms. And so now that those are marquee moments, those are really headlines right now. This is the moment to have these courageous conversations, because we don't want to, we want to raise the floor, not the ceiling, right? There's that great, I'll find the author's name, where he talks about If we improve our average best, we will perform better. But if we're always looking to just beat our best, right, or our personal record, that's just not sustainable. So I think this group collectively, we can raise the floor instead of the focus on the ceiling, and we'll all rise together.
I love that, Kristin. I mean, especially hearing from you, having so much of experience and background in the DEI space. You've seen it, you've gone through it, and you're working towards raising the floor, not necessarily raising the ceiling. I love it. It's important that we understand that we celebrate our small successes. And I always tell people I'm the one who defines success for myself. No one else is going to define the success for me, because obviously that becomes a stress and a disappointment. If I define my own success, I work towards it. And many of us as women, we work for our conviction, and it shouldn't be for approval, right? So I think that mindset has to change. So that also brings to another interesting question. I know you all spoke about, your success and some of the challenges, but I would like to, I think for the audience, what would be beneficial is if you can specify give us a very specific example of some of those type of challenges you'll come across, and how did you overcome those? Some of these could be a great takeaways for our audience. And I also encourage audience to, please start posting your questions and then have some interactive conversation on the side. So anybody wants to go first?
I'll go ahead. I am a true believer in mindset. And so that's the way that, I really handle challenges, barriers, whether they're my challenges and barriers or they're challenges and barriers I'm trying to help break down for other people, because that's what I do today. Today, even though I'm in technology, yes, I produce a couple of TV shows and radio shows and festivals and different things like that. My real true, when someone asks me what I do for a living, I make dreams come true. And I do that by providing hope. And I define it by helping one person every day. And I work with adults with developmental disabilities and help them reach their goals in wanting to work in this industry and break into it. So, I come across a challenge or a barrier every day, and how I usually handle it is it's dealt with mindset. All of the challenges and the barriers that pop up, if we let them knock us down and not get back up, then we need to fix our mindset, because there's always going to be things that are going to inhibit us, whether that's just our own fear, even talking to us, that we have to put in the back seat. Oh, look at that guy moving forward. How do I keep up? Or how do I break into this industry or exert myself as a leader in this situation? And, I've never let anyone shut me up. I've never let anyone ever tell me that I couldn't. And when they tried, it just made me want to prove them wrong and go out and do it different and better and my way. So that would be the best thing that I would tell anybody out there when they're dealing with a challenge or a barrier. And that's whether you're a woman in the space of technology, you're someone with some sort of challenge or barrier that you need to help find that pathway. We all need tools. We all have our own limitations that hold us back in doing these things. So we have to daily overcome these things. So it comes back to the mindset and where you are. And if you're going to let somebody else give you that FOMO, make that FOMO work for you, and, prove them wrong, show up differently, put yourself out there, step outside that comfort zone and make your mark. And that is what we need to do in technology, because technology is changing. And this is our space, I believe, as as entrepreneurs, as business people, as women, because we have the skills, we have the know-how, we have the knowledge, and the things that we have that maybe our male counterparts don't, we're able to spin the plates and balance and juggle and compartmentalize. So use these things in your mindset to move yourself forward and break down those barriers.
Yeah, Diane, I agree. It's a lot to do with the mindset as well. And again, looking for opportunities, creating opportunities for yourself, thinking out of the box, right? Thank you for that. Anyone else wants to add onto what Diane said?
Oh, what was the question again?
I think we are talking about any specific examples you want to take from your career around some of the challenges that you came across and how did you overcome?
Yeah, I've had a really interesting career. I mean, again, I didn't set out to be in technology. I just wanted to make the world a better place. But I was raised on technology because my dad was a science professor at the University of Illinois. So I learned how to basically build technology into my everyday life from a very, very young age, quite frankly. So as I progressed in my career, as you guys heard earlier, I'm still a licensed attorney in 3 states. I'm a former CPA, and now I'm a founder and CEO of a tech company. I actually ended up becoming, when I was in Boulder, Colorado, the first in-house counsel for a telco equipment company, so technology-based. And then I built my career from there. And what I found, unfortunately, again, I think I told you that I didn't really ever feel like there are any limitations on what I could do, but I credit my parents for that because they were incredibly supportive. I never heard no. I never heard, don't ask that question. I never heard, don't look into that. Even though I was a nerd growing up, no one ever called me, well, not really a nerd kind of thing. But, so I end up being, the first in-house counsel for this telco company that just went public. And what I encountered there, by the way, is that I felt like I should be general counsel. And I was told by one of the co-founders of that company that I was corporate counsel. That was and that person was a woman, by the way. And so that was the first kind of pushback I ever felt in my career. And I think it's really important that as women, men too, but as women, we support other women in technology. I had another instance where my boss in another technology company, it was another kind of telco based company. This person was horrid to me. And, again, smart woman, another lawyer, by the way. The first person was not a lawyer. She was one of the founders of that first company. But again, my takeaway from that is that I will never be horrid to another woman who is trying to succeed in technology or not. And if that person's not doing a good job, which I was doing a great job, by the way, it wasn't that I wasn't doing a great job. You need to encourage them. You need to support them. You need to provide them with guidance. You need to be kind in any sort of criticism of them. You don't want to make them quit, quite frankly. I mean, there were a couple of points during my career, I was like, and they were all by other women, by the way, that I just wanted to quit and I wanted to be an architect. Forget this being a lawyer, forget being a lawyer in technology, etc. So anyway, that's my takeaway for everybody here. Support other women, build them up. Just like you're saying, build up the floor. I think that's a great way to look at it. Because the ceiling is already open, right? We just all need to get, to that place. Anyway, enough said.
Thanks, Karen. Actually, I'm a big believer there's no glass ceiling. Those days are gone. No more glass ceiling. So thanks for sharing that experience. We come across many challenges like that. I think I can draw some parallels as well. Kristin, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I would love to. So I think that I'll share two stories if that's okay, and I'll be brief and just wrap me up if you need to. We're friends, and we'll be friends after this, even if you wrap me up. So I work at CDW, right? It's a Fortune 200 technology provider, and we are female-led. Female CEO, female COO, majority female on the executive committee, and majority female VP. And when we were inducted into the $1 Billion Roundtable in 2019, right, kind of anchoring in supplier diversity, that annually we spent at minimum $1 billion with minority women-owned organizations. We were the first tech CEO, led by a female, and tech company, female leading supplier diversity. And so why there's a lot of firsts there. And I think that, we can celebrate that. But I thought I would take us back and talk through, right, that adversity. I think, Diane, you talked a little bit, Karen, you just shared too, some stories of where things were hard. And so what I kind of wanted to do is tell two stories of just like that didn't work for me, right? Because I think we can learn through failure. I think that we can also only learn when we listen. And I think sometimes when we get on panels or we have, stages or keynotes, it talks about, we can just get everyone so excited to like get to the next and do your best, right? And hold hands. And I think sometimes we don't always take a step back of things that went wrong, right? That could let us here. So, and wrong in general, right? Use that as you will. And so, and I think for me of how I got here and needing allyship, right? Diane, I took a note when you were talking and I wrote allyship. That's what came to mind. And so I thought I would tell a story on allyship and how it affected me at work here. And so in 2020, so I live outside Chicago, in a town in Libertyville, pretty close to our headquarters for CDW in Lincolnshire. And I'm about 20 minutes from Kenosha, Wisconsin. And until 2020, you probably didn't hear a lot about Kenosha, Wisconsin until Jacob Blake. And so when the tragedy with Jacob Blake happened in Kenosha, Wisconsin, it was 20 minutes from my home, just over the Wisconsin-Illinois border. And, on the news, it just looked like Kenosha was in flames, right? If you were to Google it, I mean, it was just, troops were coming in. It was a national emergency. And so, right, going back to participate or be present, I had signed up that Friday to go help at the food bank in Kenosha, right? Like I have to do something. This is so close to my home, closer to Kenosha than the city of Chicago. So I signed up to go Friday. I was supposed to meet at the library, and I'll never forget, driving to there. I had the energy to go, but driving to the library, I had to go on this main road in Kenosha. And what I saw were homes boarded up and plywood, like hammer, nail plywood. And they said, "Do not burn, kids live here. Do not burn, kids live here," because the town was in flames, right? It was such, it was a tragedy, right? There was riot, protest. And when I came back, right, from the experience, I had this tremendous guilt that I'm pretty sure, I don't want to use absolutes, but 99% of me felt that I'm pretty sure I'm never going to be in that environment, that I won't ever probably have to use plywood and board up my beautiful home outside Chicago and in the suburb, and with spray paint or whatever I had, but "Do not burn, my 2 little girls live here." I was pretty sure I'm not going to have that experience. And that brought on a lot of like guilt. And having diversity in your title brings, I think, so much pressure, right? Probably good pressure, but responsible and accountability. And so I had called another leader at CDW and said, "I don't know if I should still do this work. I don't know if people want to hear from me on the topic of DEI, of equitable and inclusion. I'm not going to have these experiences." It was so much that year, right? Taking on. And you know what she said to me? She said, "You're exactly the person who should be doing this, because that's allyship. Someone else who won't have those experiences being able to talk through it, to be able to create change for others, right? We can sometimes get oversensitive with the word privilege, right? Or allyship. And we can get caught up in the hashtag or the terms, but at the core of it, if we can understand where each of us come from today and what change we can impact, big or small, it doesn't have to be big moments, but ripple by ripple, we can start helping each other and not having shame or guilt from those experiences or whatever it is. Maybe it is privilege. Perhaps I am, right? But to understand that truth and be able to help others, I think is really at the core of what can move us forward. Specifically, have more equitable workforces and workplaces, in technology. I think technology is the place to start and the place to never lose sight of, because if you think about, if we didn't have technology, think about somebody who doesn't have access to technology. Just think when we all walk in, I know my girls too, like we walk in somewhere, they're like, what's the Wi-Fi, right? They just expect the code. What is it, right? Like you can't wait to get on a plane and you're like, as soon as the ding goes on, you want the code, got to get on. Right. But imagine not having that access for technology. One, how would you participate in a democratic process? How would you know what's going on? If you didn't have access to technology, how would you ever find a job? How would you know what jobs are even available? Right. And so I think technology is the best place to start. And I don't want to say only, but should be, the majority of our time focusing on tech literacy and access to technology. Because really employment, access to these democratic processes, are really the only pathway there, right? And we need continued diversity of thought. I think the last thing I'll share, and I'll be really quick here, is, when things don't go well, Diane, I appreciated your story of with your peers and making sure that you had a place at the table. And of course, Karen, with your peer, and how that changed you to make a vow to never treat somebody how you were treated, right? So kind of what brings the core to me of this is I have a daughter with Down syndrome. And so Caitlin is 14 now, but I'll tell you 14 years ago when I had Caitlin at 28, I thought I was the only woman in Illinois who had a baby with Down syndrome because I just didn't see anyone with Down syndrome. Like I had no recall. I still don't see the disability community thriving in the workplace or the workforce. I think pause and think about the last time you saw somebody with Down syndrome at a great job. You probably haven't, right? So it's a huge gap. So that's the fire in me. So I'll tell you, right, how we get to these places and how we land is through adversity. And it doesn't always go right? And that's okay. But to talk about things that aren't going right, right? Perhaps me oversharing, right, with being so close to Kenosha and how that impacted me and my confidence at work. And I'll tell you, my confidence being Caitlin's mom is, feels like a glass ball all the time of just how do I continue to have the courage and energy to plow hurdle after hurdle for her, right? And so I think you need community to get through all of this.
Thanks, Kristin, for sharing both those, heart-touching, experiences. I mean, I know about Caitlin, and I remember our discussions about having a community for disabilities. It's still, there is a huge gap there, and there's an opportunity there. But one thing all of you have touched upon is having allies, mentors. That's another thing, right? Having mentors in life, allies, sponsors. That's something I think that today's younger generation is something they're missing. They need to really focus on. There is a lot of social media influence out there, but truly speaking, there has to be person-to-person relationship. That's what is going to be a big deal in our lives. So talking about that, I do want to really touch on it. I know we have a few more minutes before the Q&A, but I do want to ask you all about how do we today, we being successful women, how do we pay a path for youngsters to be successful especially in industries like tech, finance, manufacturing? There are many industries which are where women are minority, less represented. So what tools and techniques do you suggest or any advice for younger generations as we pave path for them?
We hire a lot of interns. I have over the years, from the time that I was a prosecutor to the time that I worked for a large corporation, and I was the head of legal, to being a founder and CEO of a tech company. I always open my door to interns. And typically I pay them. So recently I'm kind of like, maybe I shouldn't, but I always try to be kind. I give opportunity. I've had one intern now for the last couple of years, and she's phenomenal. She's a sophomore now at Boston College, and I know that I can give something to her and give her a little direction, and she just takes off. And, I give her things that are a little challenging, sometimes not, but most of the time, yes. And I have to believe in her and guide her and be available for her. But I think internships are the way to go. I had internships growing up. I worked for General Motors for a couple of years when I was in college in the finance department, and I clerked for a judge, and I clerked for the U.S. Attorney's Office. And I was just given all these incredible opportunities. And I think we need to do more of that. So if anybody that is on SheTek in this discussion is interested in a very cool internship, we have a lot to do at Makeena.
Awesome. Thanks for opening it up. And I do agree, internships are the key. We at our company offer a lot of internship opportunities. I also mentor women every year, at least 2 or 3 of them. That's part of my personal goal. And with my nonprofit association, obviously, we are able to give opportunities and also give jobs, internships in our company to many of them. So I know what it means, especially being a mentor out there. You need to it's a great learning experience both ways, being a mentor. And I think for people who are in higher positions, one other thing I always think about is be a sponsor, right? And that's what you're doing, Karen. You're talking about, providing internship and then job opportunities. You've got to be a sponsor. We got to pave those paths for the youngsters. So I completely agree. And I know, Diane, you're going to say something.
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with you, Karen, about internships. They're vital to the industry in technology, to be able to, have that time to really be able to figure out your strengths and the way things, are to roll in the culture that we're in. I succeeded in internships, coming out of college. I landed my first couple of jobs because I started as an intern and they turned into a job as a entrepreneur. And in my nonprofit, we have an apprenticeship program with the state of California for positions as well. So you can come in and be able to earn and learn at the same time. I also love going to the high schools and even getting them when they're even younger than at the college, quite professional age, and letting them shadow you, letting them come take a field trip and spend time. It's kind of fun. I work in a little bit of a sexy industry, to the fact that, when you get to come to our television studio, you see all the equipment and all the things that are going on. So it is a place that people like to come and visit. But it also opens up the door for them to see all the many facets that the industry touches. And that's what I love, because I'm an arts advocate. That's what I really am. It's how to create access to it. And it's because art touches every industry. The technology and digital media that goes into how we communicate, in how we learn, in how we, and how we put things together and make it happen. We have computer chips and technology that just brings all that together. So that's why I love the arts, because you can be the CPA, but you still have to market and communicate your business, or the lawyer or the HR person working in computer programming. Everything touches in some sort of art way. And that's how I have really found how to break through communication in technology, is to come at it with that artistic, creative way. And so have a little art in your life, and you can definitely be able to find your pathway into this industry.
Thanks, Diane. I agree. Technology is a backbone to everything. Today, you can't survive without technology. Thanks for sharing that. And Kristin.
I'm like smiling so big, like peel me off the ceiling. Bring in the artistic way that you can. I think that is just an open invitation, right? To come as you are and do as you can and show up. I think there's an over expectation sometimes for young women, or maybe parents listening or employers listening, that, oh my gosh, we have to do all these things now, right? Go get a mentor, go get a sponsor, find an internship, right? And your to-do list just got longer on a Friday afternoon. I think, but I love, Diane, that you said of, find a way in which you can understand how you contribute, right? A little art in your life, and what do you bring? What's your value, right? And I'm cautious to use the word superpower, because I think that could be intimidating, right? Of like, what's your superpower? I definitely don't ask my girls that, because I don't want them to feel like they have to rise to that level, right? But I think, what can you bring? Like, what ignites the fire in you? And then how do you share that, right? Would be how I kind of approach kind of things that I'm going to invest my time in, my mind share in, or my thought. So I think, as I agree, internships, they're low risk, right? They know what they're getting into at the end of it, and the employer knows what kind of employee they'll get, right? And so it can be a great low risk option for, next stage in employment. I would say I'd offer, I never had an internship, so I just want to make sure to those parents listening, or if you're listening and you don't have an internship, you can still do good things without an internship. I never had one. But I think 3 things on next level leadership and career upskilling, or entry level. The 3 A's: be accountable, be aware, and be available. So be accountable to kind of the macro, micro environment. If you're in tech, understand what's going on, right? Read a little, subscribe to 1 newsletter, a week, and just kind of anchor yourself. Be available to yourself, to your team, to your family, right? Just be available, and be a giver. Be a giver of time, be a giver of thought, be a giver of feedback, but also be a forgiver too. You'll have a much happier life for sure. And be accountable to things in which you say you're going to do, right? Be accountable. So accountable, available, and aware. Internship or not, I think those 3 things can really help you.
Yeah, great points. And Kristin, I also, I agree that one thing I also add to that is the confidence, self-confidence. And I see in the younger generation, I am seeing that there is a lack of self-confidence. They can do a lot of different things, but there is a lack of self-confidence that it just really pushes them away from, really opting for like STEM programs, or even going into technology field. There's a myth out there, it's not for me. So that's as mothers, as leaders, entrepreneurs, we all have to really work towards changing that mindset. And I think that all of you are doing incredible job from that perspective. I really, truly appreciate that. There is a lot that we can talk about, especially when it comes to diversity and equality. I don't think we even touched the most critical things, some of the critical things out there, because I also serve on the board of a gender equity and reconciliation organization. And we really speak about the core differences and how, we really overcome some of those through workshops and all that stuff. So there is a lot to be talked about, and these sessions can be continued. I do want to, now we are left with about 8 minutes. And see how the time flies. But I do want to give a chance to our audience questions. Joanne, do you want to come up and bring out any questions out there?
Sure.
Looks like there's 2.
There's 2, yeah. There's 2 in the chat. One is from Sally. How is the market downturn in tech and the recent downsizing impacting women in tech, and particularly young women in tech?
Great question, Sally. Well, I can start with it. Maybe you all can chime in.
I can chime in.
There is definitely a downturn in tech, and there are a lot of there is a lot of downsizing happening. In my career, I have seen many times downsizing happening, but I think I was more vigilant about what are the other opportunities within the organization, or what are the opportunities outside the organization if I have to shift my focus and learn new things. And I was a continuous learner. I'm still learn, and learning new things and trying to shift your gear and your direction, trying to find new places to go to opportunity. There is, universe has tremendous amount of opportunities. We can't be just sticking to one thing and assuming that we are safe in that place. I, as a consultant many years, I always felt that I need to always have a backup plan. So that's how I continue to move on. But I do want to open up for others to respond as well.
I'm going to ditto you. I'm a continuous learner. My dad was a Harvard educated science professor. And so I was very fortunate that I grew up in a university town. So I was always learning. And so even though I had a very strong educational background, accounting, and then law, I became a founder in tech. And every single day, excuse me, I'm learning from all of you, even right now. Like, I love the AAA type of description that you just gave, Kristin. That was great. I want to write that down. But I think you have to pivot. You have to be flexible. You have to be fearless. If you are a young woman in tech and you got laid off from Twitter or Accenture, because I know Accenture just had a big layoff as well. I used to work there, by the way. Take that leap of faith, go to these, meetings, listen to SheTek, go to your local university, see if there's a course or two that you can take to upscale yourself. So anyway, that's my advice. I'm right with you.
I agree. Lifelong learning is the way to go. We are always evolving and we are always growing, and you have to consistently be learning. And as a young person in tech, I think you have the world in front of you because of technology, the way that it's moving, that you have this opportunity to grow with it and use the technology to your advantage, to even be able to step out on your own, to be able to develop and incentivize others, bring others with you, create a space that is this diverse and equitable space in technology, and let the technology lead you. Don't be afraid. I mean, I always say you got to work smarter, not harder. And technology is growing and changing. And, if a bot can help you get there faster, engage the bot and move it forward. That's what it's there for. So, don't let these companies are evolving and changing, and if you have what it takes or go out and learn what it takes, you're going to land somewhere different and better, and just move with it. Let the technology work for you. And I mean, you have it at your fingertips, and if you know how to use it and manipulate it and make it work for you.
Thanks, both Corinne and Diane. I think, Kristin, I'm going to ask you to respond to the other question. How receptive is the industry to older workers entering tech? So maybe you can answer that and let others chime in as well.
Yeah, I'll be quick too, because this could go on we could have had 2 hours. So we'll have to have like a reoccurring session. I think with it being 2023 and everything that we have been through, right? It's not a year of grievances, but a year of moving forward, that these conversations on youth and maturity in the workforce are more welcomed than ever. right? I think we aren't going to be doing things in which we always have done, right? We are at an absolute intersection of legacy and transformative. So I think, you know, for a more mature workforce or more seasoned workforce, that's absolutely is welcomed. I think that there's always places to be intimidated, but I would challenge you to be, you know, inspired and not intimidated by age, place, or, you know, what you bring to the table or what you didn't bring to the table, but what can you bring today, right? Because there are big problems to be solved for, massive problems that still need to be solved for a more societable world.
What an inspiring way you express this, Kristin. I agree with you. I think we all have to think about what can we bring to the table rather than worrying about, you know, how old I am and what experience I've had, and that always doesn't stand good, especially in the tech field. Things are changing at a faster pace. Great advice. Anything else, Diane, Karen, you want to add on to that?
You know, the only thing that I would say is just keep on, keep a fresh mind, keep on learning. As I mentioned, I just turned 60. I'm always learning. I don't think that I'm inhibited by anything. So it's no pun intended, because my last name is Frame. It's a frame of mind.
Oh, love it.
I'm just going to come in with a ditto, and you know, that is so true. It really is. It's a mindset. You know, you're only older in tech if you feel like you're older in tech, because tech is new and involved and engaging. So go out and engage in it and make your pathway. You know, that's what it's all about. I'm right behind you, Karen. You know, I'm 55 and I just keep moving forward. Don't let anyone, you know, tell you different. Just keep carving your own pathway, making your mark in history. And as a woman and as in technology, we have nothing but clear skies ahead, because there is no ceiling and the floor is rising. So there we go.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, it's a great conversation. I do want to add one thing, you know, it's so beautiful to see older generation learning from the younger generation too. I think we need to have an open mind, even at work, when you have youngsters and they are doing something new, different, you know, the older generation brings a balance in the experience, and the younger generation brings a lot of creativity, innovation. I think it's a great combination to work together. And as leaders, we have to create that culture in the organizations that promotes that co-working of various age groups. So really wonderful, great discussion. I know we are off with the time, but thank you. Truly appreciate your time and your insights. And I look forward to more and more conversations going in future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was great,
Good.
everybody. I'm sure we could continue to go on and on for this for ages and ages. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I'm going to pop up my screen for a moment to do our last minute wrap up.
As you do that, Joanne, thank you so much for your help and getting this done so smoothly.
Oh, thank you. Well, listen, you guys have been amazing. I mean, you're right. We could listen to this for probably another couple of hours. Everybody has to come to New Jersey and we'll have a big party and a day-long conversation. But let me give you our quick SheTek update for those folks that are attending the event. Join us at shetek.net, where you can engage, empower, and start your life in tech and learn from other great women. We've got a couple of things coming up that I wanted to share with you. This is what happens when I try talking too fast. Speaking of mentors and allies, we have the SheTek Tech Mentorship Program, which also currently has scholarships available for those looking for mentors to help them in the tech field. So all you need to do is go to bit.ly/SheTek Mentor, and you can sign up for the program, find out more about it. This cohort is going to be starting probably the end of April, beginning of May. So get those applications in soon. Next up, we always are looking for volunteers to help us plan great events like this, the Outlet, our SheTek annual conference, which is going to be late summer, early fall this year. We had a great networking event last year. Hope you ladies can fly out here and join us, and also to help with our tech mentorship. I want to thank you all for joining us today. And we'll see you at the next outlet, if not sooner. Thank you very much.